to another episode of Beekeeping Buddies. I'm Steven.
I'm Luke.
It's been nice and cool, but very dry.
Yes, extremely dry.
And we have no rain in the forecast for the next week, and but it's just going to warm some back up again. But we've had some 50-degree nights, which have really put the changes on the hives.
Yeah.
The propolis. I understand you were fighting some propolis issues with some cool mornings.
Yeah, most people don't realize how cement-like the propolis gets when it gets down to those temperatures.
Are you going to harvest any propolis this year for fall?
I'm not. I do have equipment to do that. I'm going to be doing that next year for spring.
As I understand it, this is the time of year to be putting on a propolis trap.
Really?
If anybody, in the fall when I need to be starting to seal up the hive.
Yeah.
You put your propolis trap up on the top, and they should start sealing it up.
Interesting. I have the equipment for it. I just haven't committed to doing it because it's a lot of work to process them. Like the whole propolis, which is just tree sap and honey and bee spit, I think is all there's really made
resins. Yeah,
and then to you have to freeze it. It's like a glue-ish thing. And then you have to pull it out of the hive. You have to freeze it, and then you have to shatter it off of the. Basically, it's a queen excluder looking.
Yeah, it's a queen excluder, and that's why it was fall. And usually you'll pull it on a 40-degree day, so it's sort of already frozen for you, and then it'll shatter into a tub.
Yeah.
And then I'll catch everything that shatters off it, and you're not putting that back on because.
Yeah, and I think you have to powder it and then filter it through a grain alcohol.
It was my understanding that you could break it up into a quarter 1/8 inch square size, and then
sell it like that,
and then keep it frozen, and divvy it up into 1 ounce baggies and sell it. Always sell it cold/frozen.
I thought you had to process it through alcohol and break it down and make tinctures out of it and stuff. I don't know. It's not something I've looked into. Maybe it's something I need to be looking into.
I thought the usual way to consume it was the same way you would pollen. So sprinkle it on stuff.
That would get talking about taffy getting stuck in your teeth. Man, that stuff would. The propolis turn your teeth yellow and totally get stuck in them.
Well, I don't. You put it in your cold milk for your cereal, and it just stays cold and crunchy.
Yeah, I'll just have pollen and honey.
Neither of us have actually delved into that. So
no, I haven't delved. I actually had a really weird. Speaking of stuff that you can sell, we didn't talk about this pre-show notes. I had a really weird one. People are selling dead bees on Etsy. Like drones. I can separate my drones out, sell my dead drones. Separate my workers out, I sell dead workers. Have dead queens, sell dead queens. And then
for what purpose?
Art supplies. So dried, dead.
You're gonna take your glue stick and you're gonna stick them to your plate with your hand turkey. I
just saw a post on it. I've been following.
You're gonna use this as something to tie a fly with or something.
I don't know
for a fly fishing.
I don't know. I was looking at the beekeeping on Reddit. There's a subreddit called Beekeeping, and I go on there and answer questions. And I saw this and I thought, there's no way. And I looked it up on Etsy, and sure enough, they're selling
another product for Riverview Road Apiary to sell, huh?
Hopefully. I mean, I don't want a bunch of dead bees to sell.
I mean,
right? That's the failure is I made a bunch of dead bees and dead out, and but I don't really want to do that. And also, I would expect you to have to dry them somehow, but I do have a dehumidifier.
Yeah.
So maybe it is something I'll look into. I'll look into it and I'll come back. The podcast for
the other thing we've got going around the yard, I guess you're still feeding. You're doing some feeding still.
I am. They're still pretty aggressively picking up nectar, and because we were just looking at pictures, I got a nice picture of a goldenrod field.
Yeah,
it's not quite open.
Nope. It looks like it's going to be. It'd probably be earlier if we got some rain, but we don't have any rain in the forecast. So,
but it's once it warms up, the end of the week.
Yeah.
That it pops.
It pops at the end of the week. It's supposed to be 90 on the weekend.
The girls are bringing in like a yellowish, tannish pollen. I'm not 100% sure where it's from. I would guess it's from goldenrod. But
I was down by my hives today, and there was a couple hives that were very, very busy.
Well, but they're not stinky yet. I had one hive that I got into that was a little, barely goldenrod stink.
Yeah.
But they're not. They smell, for those that don't know goldenrod smell, it smells like, I think it smells like dirty socks.
I that's how I would describe it.
Yeah, like a cross between like bananas and dirty socks. The banana smells.
It's a real musky smell.
Yeah, banana smells usually because they're stressed out, but the dirty socks is really from goldenrod. And in my apiary, you can actually walk up the hill when that's going on, and you can actually smell it. Kind of rolls down the hill and lays low, and you can smell it 30, 40 feet away from the hives.
The cutouts, we did a couple cutouts right before you left for your Spain trip, which we'll cover here in a minute.
Yep.
And I tell you what, man, doing cutouts toward the end of summer and into fall here, they get real exciting about 45 minutes into it, because all of the robbers in the neighborhood show up. And then the last one we did was at a house, an old farmhouse, and second floor. I was a good 15 feet off the ground in a soffit area on a roof, and they were a little spicy to open up, but afterwards not too bad. A lot of vacuuming. The comb was right there at the front.
Yeah.
Not too much digging around in the back, arm deep kind of stuff. So there weren't a lot of flyers to start with, and by the time we ended, I was working in a cloud of bees.
When we were done, and I brought it back, so I got the bees this time. I brought it back into the yard and put it with another cutout we had done that was low on population. It was 3/4 of that 5-gallon bucket full of bees.
Because there were times when, because we were putting honey, just regular random honey chunks and trash and stuff in a bucket, and there were times when I would look down in the bucket and it was just covered in bees, and I would just take the vac and just stick the vac down there and vac off whatever I could easily get to in that box. I'm like, oh, free bees, right? Like, somebody's gonna be missing like half their foragers.
Yeah.
But it makes for some real, and that's a challenge to communicate to the homeowners that, because you get done cutting everything out and there's 10 times more activity there than they ever had all year, and you're supposed to have fixed this problem.
Yeah. And
there's more activity there than there ever was, and that's a real challenge to try to communicate that this is not this is something that's going to resolve relatively quickly.
Yeah. How many times did you get stung during this one?
4 or 5, but it was right at the start because it was kind of weird. At the soffit, there was a piece of crown mold that was formed the top piece of molding on the soffit fascia, and that had rotted on about a 3-foot section. Yeah. And so they had this sort of 3-foot long, thin entrance, and it was all lined with all eyeballs, right? So they're all lined up protecting it because it's such a large entrance. Yeah. So there was quite a few on guard. It was a pretty good sized hive in terms of population. So there were quite a few guards, and when I was pulling off that piece of crown, all the guards came out to say hi, and probably every single one of them nailed me.
So I got stung, I think it was 12 times or 13 times, and I didn't get up there. Yeah. Well, I got up there right at the end to look and do some scraping out, but I got 12 or 13 times putting in like the comb into frames.
Yeah,
and that was always like I switched a bee, I pinched a bee because there were so many that were so interested in what you're doing because it was just a little bit of honey, and it didn't take much honey for those robbers to be everywhere.
Because that's the thing that a lot of people, it's hard to understand. Like when you're a regular beekeeper working regular frames, you handle the frames by their edges where the frame is, where the wood is, and you don't really have a reason to touch comb.
Yeah.
And for the most part, the bees don't hang out on the wooden frames. And if there's 1 or 2 crawling around, they're easy to sort of avoid. But if you cut out a chunk of comb that is roughly the size of a frame out of a house, there's no way to handle that, right? Like you have to pick it up by the comb.
Yeah.
Or you have to sort of cut it away from the ceiling and then lay it over on your hand, and sort of you've got this giant piece of comb supported by your hand to try to reduce the pressure, like the surface, the PSI, right? Because the light soft stuff is really hard to handle. You try to touch it and it just sort of melts in your fingers, right?
The newly drawn comb, it has no real structure, like stiff structure to it.
Yeah, so if you try to hold it from a single point, it's not designed, it's structurally, it doesn't do that. And so you kind of have to palm these large areas of comb in order to handle them. And because of that, it's really hard to get an entire palm size area on the comb that's free of bees long enough for you to get your palm underneath there. So you'll cut a piece of comb free, it'll kind of flop over in your hand, and invariably somebody gets squished in that process.
Yeah.
And that's when you get stung.
Yeah, they trapped.
And you're like, okay, so that's the guy up on the ladder, but then you hand it down to your ground man who's putting it in frame, rubber banding it up, and they're going through the same thing. You got to handle the comb to get it in a frame, and in doing so, it's almost impossible not to get stung in the hands, and it's just really a couple days later, man, the swelling on the knuckles and pads.
Yeah, my swelling's not so bad anymore, but it's the black spots will show up.
Yeah.
Because where they sting you, they leave like a little bloody, like a blood blister.
Yeah.
A little tiny one.
Yep.
And so you can look at your hands and go, oh, I got stung all these times. Yes, he's pointing to one he's got in the palm.
Right in the ball of my hand.
Yeah, I got one in my opposite ring finger, whatever that finger is. I got 2 or 3 today. Just working the hives today, and they're kind of crabby this time of year. They're not real happy that you're in there.
It's dry and dirty.
Yeah.
You went to Spain and for some vacation time.
Yeah.
And last episode we talked about your ability to be able to, since you've become a full-time beekeeper, or maybe a little before then, you've tried to include some beekeeping excursions in your vacations because it gives an opportunity to see how they do it in different parts of the world, different parts of the country. You've had some success with that in the past. It's had some interesting stories. And you were attempting to carry that on when going to Spain. We briefly talked about there was going to be a tour, $200.
Yeah.
And how did it go?
They totally shut me down.
Didn't happen.
They offered the $200. I offered the $200 per person. We had a group of 4 that would have gone, so it would have been $800. And they were like, "Oh, we didn't actually think that you'd accept that. That was we don't really want to give this tour price, so we're just going to tell you, no."
So you think they actually had an apiary to actually go
they do.
See, or they just?
I think it's one of those things that they set it up only on the weekends. We only do tours on the weekends, and we're only going to let you tour on the weekends. And so they came back and said, if you come back on the weekend, we'll happily do this. But it was in Barcelona, so we went to Barcelona, which is up on like the west coast, kind of on the north side. We went to Madrid, which is in the center of Spain, and then we went to Seville, which is like southern, east, southwest of Spain. So east, center, west. Sorry, east, center, west. And this one was in Madrid, and they just weren't real excited about anybody coming to see them. Now, all of these cities, I would say the largest gardens were in Seville, but most of them were just giant cement and block sections. The green space was very, very limited, especially Barcelona. So Barcelona was interestingly designed. They have like a Gothic section, which was the original portion of Barcelona that was like all had the walls in, and then around Barcelona they put like a nice grid down, so you can look at Barcelona from Google and see like the nice grid. I think that's
the classic area with all the red tile roofs, and it's all squares.
Yeah, they're all perfect squares. So the idea was that in the middle of all this, every block was supposed to be a green space. So they were like, hey, we won't have one green space.
Supposed to be? Like, it doesn't exist, or what?
It doesn't exist because they had too many people. So now we have to fill in those middle of those blocks and fill in that green space.
With other stuff.
Yeah, with buildings. So almost no green space there. Madrid had very little green space. Seville had more green space. And then we went to like some small towns outside of Seville, and even those, they had lots of green space and flowers, but I think I saw probably 10 total bumblebees the whole time I was there, and like 4 yellow jackets and a robber fly.
And so
almost no pollinators, no butterflies.
But you did pick up some honey at a grocery store.
I did. I went to like multiple grocery stores, and being a beekeeper, I went and looked at the labels. Where was this actually produced? And so I stopped at one of the grocery stores that was specifically for honey and to see where it was produced. Interestingly enough, they still have the problem that we have, which is this was produced in Portugal, or this was produced in a different country, bottled and produced in a different country, and we're labeling it as local. And so those I didn't buy. So it was the third or fourth store I think that we went to that had honey. Maybe it was a second. I'm not sure. We went to a couple. I saw multiple things of honey, and I only bought the one I went to in the last section because it was deemed local. This is a local to Seville. We sell all kinds of stuff, meat and other products. So I brought back 2 honeys. One of them was supposed to be orange blossom honey because Seville's known for, and I know I'm saying Seville slightly wrong. It's for those Spanish listeners. They're like, hey, you're saying it wrong. I know it's pronounced slightly differently, but in my head it's Seville. So they had 2 honeys, one of them, and they're from small towns, less than an hour outside Seville. And one of them brings bees in to pollinate the orange blossoms on the trees, because there's lots of orange trees within the city of Seville that had already produced oranges. So part of it might be like I totally missed their summer flow, and there's just not that many pollinators right now. It's real dry at the end of summer. But I think more realistically, there's just not that many.
But I mean, the climate over there is fairly Mediterranean overall, though.
Oh, yeah.
So, like,
it's
to say you're going to have this big shift into winter, like it would be for Canada, I don't think is a good. I
don't know. I just didn't see them anywhere, and that was pretty disappointing for me as a beekeeper. And it was disappointing that I couldn't get to go see, a setup. In fact, I even called one. I looked it up online that is marked as a beekeeping company with pictures of hives and stuff. And I was like, oh, this would be great. So I called them. It was an hour away from where we were, where Kelly and I were. And I was like, hey, I see these pictures on your hive. I was like, first of all, do you speak English? And they said, yeah, we actually speak English. Great. I see these pictures of hive. I'm a tourist. I'm a beekeeper. I'd like to come see your bees, or just talk to a beekeeper there. I see these pictures of hives on your website. Can I come see the bees? And they're like, no, we just sell honey. We're not.
So it was just a marketing, B-roll shot.
Yeah.
Interesting.
So
and then you brought some honeys back.
We brought honey back.
And spoiler alert, they were almost as disappointing as the lack of no bees.
Yeah, they were. We tried them here before we started. We tried 3 of them.
3 of them.
One of them was one of them was a gift from Alaska.
Yeah.
So we'll separate that one out. So one of them was the oranges, the naranjas.
Yes.
And that one was we both agreed had kind of a chemically.
The word I used was artificial.
Yeah.
Not the same taste as you get with a sugar water.
Yeah.
But it just there was a finish there that just tasted artificial. Like, I don't know if it's high fructose corn syrup or
I don't know.
You kept using chemical, and it's not like it's harsh. It's not like it's bitter or like the note was off.
It tasted weirdly medicinal.
Yeah.
And like to hit, how when you have, if you put an aspirin in your mouth, like the old powdered aspirins, that is a chemical taste.
But that's almost a bitter though.
Yeah. This wasn't bitter. It was chemical. For me, it was a chemically taste.
So and because of that, like that was more forward than any other sort of floral or sweet. It was just a solid meh.
Yeah, I was hoping that since it was orange blossom honey,
but
maybe something more. I just don't.
we were both in agreement that there was no orange discernible anything.
Right.
The other one was a really light. By look, it was a really light honey.
Mm-hmm.
And when you tasted it, it was thoroughly unremarkable. It was not artificial. It was clearly not a syrup honey, in that respect. But it was just my notes are unremarkable, meaning it was just a light spring honey that had nothing going for it. It was sweet.
It was sweet,
but other than that,
no flowers.
Yep, no flowers.
No, if you'd given it to me and said, "Where is this from?" I wouldn't be able to tell you.
Nope.
So yeah, that was.
So I don't know if that was it. I don't know if that's like the result of an ultra filtered sort of process where we've pulled all the pollen out or something. Because again, it didn't have the quote unquote artificial taste that the second one had. We started with the light one. So it wasn't like it didn't not taste like honey. It seemed like it was, solid real honey. It's just unremarkable in its flavor.
Yeah. No real. It's a sweetener. As a sweetener, it'd be fine.
Yeah.
As if you're looking for depth of flavor, like we do, then no. But I did mark that one higher than the orange blossom one. The
Agreed.
orange blossom one was one of my lowest rated of the ones we tried.
And then our third one was a supposedly habanero honey.
It was habanero. It's a huckleberry. It was a weird berry.
It was supposed to be a hot honey, I thought.
Well, I looked at it afterwards. I didn't actually see the words hot honey, but it was a habanero honey, but not from a habanero plant. It was like a huckleberry habanero honey.
So
from Alaska.
Yeah. So you took the top off in order to take the seal off the top of the thing.
Yeah.
And it turned out the seal got stuck in the cap. So if we wanted to use the cap, the little bear of honey sat on the table for like 30 seconds while we fished the little foil safety thing out of the cap. And it was sitting in front of you. And after about 10 seconds, you were like, whoa, that's habanero pepper. And so about 10 more seconds, it hit me sitting on the other side of the table.
Yeah.
And I thought anything that comes out of a little bear with that big of a note of habanero was going to be, we were going to be on the episode of the Hot Ones.
Yeah.
And so he's like, well, I'll take one for the team. I'm like, the hell you're going to do this on your own? So he gave me a little drop in my spoon, and you had a little drop in your spoon. And the other thing to notice was that it was notably green.
It's green, tinted green. I thought it was the bottle. That like they had tinted a bottle green or something.
But it's noticeably green.
Yeah.
And so again, strong nose of pepper. Like it's there. The habanero is boom. It's there.
Even in the small spoonful, it was enough to go, oh yeah, this is habanero.
And so you put it on your tongue, expecting to get that just smack upside your face of capsaicin.
Yeah. And
I finished expecting, because your hot honey starts sweet, and then it smacks you upside the head as it goes down the back of your tongue of like, hot honey.
Hey, by the way,
boom, this is hot, right?
Yeah.
And I was expecting the same thing with this, especially with that such a forward nose on it.
Yeah.
And nothing. No heat whatsoever.
Grass clippings flavor.
Yes.
Actually, too. So like it tastes like it's the most green tasting honey I've ever had.
Yes.
And there is absolutely zero heat. In fact, I thought about it afterwards. I'm like, I don't know what I would use this for.
Yes.
Like maybe
because the green
salad, like a vinaigrette, maybe.
That might be it, because I also have the notes of taste green.
Yeah.
And you're like, how do you taste a color? And you lack the vocabulary to describe it, other than the fact that if I gave it to you and I said like, it tastes like green, you'd be like, for lack of any other good words to describe it, I could agree with that.
It's kind of it's a vegetal grass flavor.
But it's not like it's not like irony like a spinach is. It doesn't have that. It doesn't have that dirt sort of taste that a lot of leafy greens will often have.
It's the fresh cut grass distilled into a flavor.
And again, absolutely no heat. So sweet, probably as sweet as the light one that we had.
Yeah.
But again, no tingle to it, no spice to it, no floral to it, just a light sweet honey. And I don't know if they just doctored it with some artificial flavors or something.
Yeah, my theory is so I've seen people soak peppers in honey and call it, this is habanero or this is jalapeno or this is whatever.
But if you'd cut the habanero open, you would definitely have some capsaicin because it'd been in contact with the seed. So you put whole jalapenos or
the ones
habaneros in there.
Yeah, the ones I've seen, they put whole peppers in there, and they let it sit for a couple days, and then you pull it out.
And I in my head, I have a hard time accepting the fact that it has such a strong odor of habanero and yet no flavor.
Yeah, no,
and that's
no heat.
No heat.
Yeah, it was very unique. So I do honey tastings. Would I put that on the honey tasting? If somebody had
bonus round.
Yeah, if somebody had tasted multiple honeys, so I usually do my hot honey as a bonus round because not everybody likes hot. And hey, you don't have to like hot and don't have that on your plate.
Well, that's what you just do is open that one up and pass it around. And like, now, okay, bonus round, hot honeys, open that one up and then pass that around. Yeah. And everybody's like, oh my God, what are we about to get into? And then you're like, absolutely nothing. And then you can smack them upside the head with yours for the second one because they're totally not expected.
Yeah,
because yours does not have the same nose on it that this did.
No, some of them do have a nose on it though. Like you can get. Especially as you get to the bottom of one of our hot honeys bottles, it comes off it, but not this. This was something very, very different.
And so
I don't think I would if somebody was like, hey, I want a unique honey. This is not what I would point them towards.
No. And so far, I think of the stuff I've collected this year, the stuff that we got from the cutout. Has been voted my favorite of the stuff I've gotten this year. I got a light one from the spring that's just sort of a light honey. Yeah. I got a dark one that's dark and like it's got a lot more flavor, but it has a tendency to overpower the sweetness almost.
Yeah.
So if you want just something nice and light and sweet for your biscuit, that can be kind of overpowering for it. It's probably great for tea. Because you get that flavor has a tendency to blend into the tea better.
Yeah, I really like my tea to have a nose of flowers. If I'm going to put honey, I want the flowers to come real strong when I'm having my tea. So I usually look for something really floral that has a
lavender.
Yeah, and then I have
or a mint.
In mine, I don't have a mint this year. I have an apple this year I had 10 pounds of it. It has front forward apple. It tastes like biting a Granny Smith.
Yeah.
And then immediately dousing it with honey.
I'd like to try that one.
Yeah, that one's really nice.
We have in the news where we talk about various beekeeping related items that show up in the news. The most recent article here seems to have been published this month in ABC Riverland Biosecurity. And it's a note about apparently they've come up with some more Varroa mites in southern Australia.
Yeah, they finally made it there. Remember, Australia's opposite us, right? So we're going into winter. They're coming into summer.
Yeah, they're coming out of winter as we're coming out of summer.
Yeah.
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 So they're going into spring as we're going into fall.
Right.
Yes.
So this is our April-ish in our area, and they're very worried. It's been a long time. They've really in Australia. Australia was the last continent on the in the world to actually get Varroa mites. They got them in 2022
per the Googles.
Yep. And from there was a ship that had a swarm on it, and from the U.S., and that's where they think they brought them in. And that swarm spread Varroa mites all across the country. They tried really hard they basically killed thousands of hives in order to keep it out of Australia, and it didn't work. So now they've got them, and they're spreading to South Australia, which is kind of the growing area for their.
And I guess they were really concerned about their almonds and fruit trees, orchards, and whatnot, because the article seems to suggest they don't currently support a lot of migratory bee hives to do pollination services, unlike California for their almonds. But then again, I think it's an issue of quantity where like California grows like 80% of the world's almonds or something. So if one area of one state grows most of the world's supply of almonds, then I don't think that we're talking about a significant number of trees that would need to support, like we have to truck in bees from all over the country to support 80% of the world's almonds. Therefore, they probably aren't used to having to bring in extra pollinators, but I guess they're concerned that they're going to have significant impact. The Varroa mites are going to significantly impact the hives, i.e. kill them.
Well, they're worried about the wild, so they have a lot of wild hives there. And so they're worried that the Varroa, because as in the U.S., right, when the Varroa first came in, there was no real good resistance against them, and it killed a huge percentage of them. So their number that they've put here in this article is 95% loss of wild hives, which and right now they're saying that $4.6 billion of their food crops in Australia are pollinated by honeybees. So they're worried that once those feral bee populations drop, you'll have to put a lot more effort into bringing in migratory beekeepers, and that isn't something that they've done before. They need it's right here. It says they need about 60,000 hives in Australia in August, and so without those, they're going to be dependent on commercial hives.
Yeah. So if you're a beekeeper down in Australia, I don't know how many Australian listeners we have, but it sounds like there might be an opportunity there to have some pollination services coming up.
Yeah, or
and if so,
organize it. Get in front of it.
Keep on top of your mite checks. Start to learn to do some mite checks if you haven't already done it. Yeah. Because it'll be something that sounds like you'll have to be more focused on in the coming future. I know when I got started, you didn't have to really worry about it, and that was only 2018 or 2008. So I think you had a correction on a note talking about high fructose corn syrup and heating it.
I do. I said something along the lines that high fructose corn syrup changes into HMF last episode. I believe I said it was around 104 or something like that. I looked it up afterwards because it sounded funny to me. It's 113. It starts to produce HMF, and between 113 and 120. At 120, you've created a huge amount of it for the hive. So there's a correction for last time.
I think that had to do with microwaving both HCFS and sugar waters for making two to one. I think it was
It's part of our side thing about, hey, can you use maple syrup as a feed?
Which sort of transitions into our Honeybee Hotline, where we take questions from listeners and various people. They could be students, could be listeners. I understand you've got a series of questions that came in.
Yep.
Because
no one's been sending them to us, hint, send us some questions. No one's been sending us any, so I just pulled some off of Facebook group I'm a part of, and somebody posted anonymously, and I thought, you know what, some of these are interesting questions we should talk about. The first one, the way it's worded is we'll get into the way it's worded, but I'm also interested in actually talking a little bit about the different things you see in a hive. But the question is about bee identification, and they say that they notice a variety of insects in their hive. Some look like wasps, others like different kinds of bees. How much variation is normal inside a healthy colony? So the answer to that question is
none.
None.
You should have honeybees and honeybees.
In honeybees.
Apis mellifera.
You might have small hive beetles that you could see.
Small hive beetles. You might have some sugar ants.
Yeah.
But those aren't. You shouldn't be mistaking those for flying insects.
Yeah, and having wasps inside your hive isn't great. I've actually had one hive that had mud daubers that moved into the top.
Top or maybe on the bottom of the screen bottom board or something, maybe?
No, when they moved into the top and they were going into the top entrance.
Yeah.
There was probably too much space for the bees. But that's not great. not correct. So, yeah, I agree. There should be none. I am worried that the guy that wrote this is noticing something else and not identifying it correctly.
Like a deformed wing virus or something?
Yeah, parasitic mite syndrome makes a bee lose its hair, and they look a lot like little black wasps. And they kind of are shaky, and they'll walk through the hive. They also will get old, and they can do that and lose their hair. But usually that's a disease tied to high mite counts. So my guess is that he's seeing those and going, oh, that's a wasp, not a honeybee, and his hive has an issue, which is further reinforced when we get down to this fifth question in this whole series. He has a question about, or I'm just assuming it's a he, they have a question about comb color. So the frames are different colors, some light, some dark. What causes this? And is this a good or bad sign?
So typically, if with no other opportunities to collect building material, they will build comb out of nothing but virgin white wax. And so the comb will be almost transparent white. However, if you give them other building materials to choose from, they will chew those up and mix it in with your wax.
Yeah, I have some upstairs.
Yeah, so if you have if you get an older frame from a beekeeper as part of a split or something, they harvest some of that existing wax and mix it in with the brand new white wax, and may come out being more gray or yellow in color. And as if it stays honeycomb, if all they put in is honey, it will maintain a light creamish, yellowish color for all of its life. However, if they start to lay brood in that comb during the pupa phase, between the larva and the pupa phase, the pupa spins a cocoon, and it actually spends a portion of its time in cocoon. Unfortunately, I don't know what the exact days are. With a close enough life cycle, you could know what days it spends in a cocoon before it uncocoons itself into the adult bee. And as it emerges from the cell, a portion of that cocoon, which is sort of a papery material, is left behind in the cell wall. The first job the bee has as a brand new birthed bee is to turn around and clean its cell and clean a portion of the cocoon back out of the cell and prep it for laying of the new egg. Not all of the cocoon will be removed, and over time, buildup of the cocoons will turn the cells progressively more dark.
All the way to black.
All the way to black. The addition of the bees walking on top of the wax with dirt and things on their feet will have a tendency to also color the wax, which is why they typically attribute that the changing of capped brood from light to dark, while there is some oxidation there, they feel like it has mostly to do with foot traffic on top of the cappings of capped brood.
Yeah.
And so the longer the cappings are there, the darker they get, some from oxidation, but mostly from foot traffic. So that when you hear people talk about light brood and dark brood, that's what they're talking about. So there's some foot traffic color on the top, but mostly cocoons. It'll get to the point where it's actually pretty fragile because the cocoons have displaced most of the wax, and it's lost the wax is really the structural integrity of the cell. And at some point, you'll raise enough generations in there that they'll basically abandon it, and it'll be this papery,
crunchy. You can actually pull it apart, and you can see the cocoons. The cocoons will have some integrity to them.
Yeah.
So you can see it when you pull it apart. You can see the little cocoons. And in the wild, people are like, well, what do you do in the wild? Well, like you said, they abandoned that section. It usually falls off. Like you'll get invaders and stuff. Wax moss will come in. Other things will come in and chew it up, and it'll fall off. And they'll rebuild. If they're there for long enough, they kind of move back left and right, and will rebuild those areas to reclaim them. So yeah, does it have like that's the coloration, and that's what causes
good or bad?
It's just part of.
You should probably be. We recommend labeling your frames with a year you put it into service.
Yep.
And then as it nears the 4 to 5 year mark, look at starting to retire those frames. If they've been raising brood in them, look at retiring those frames. I have honey frames that live in my honey supers that are 10 years old, but they've never had brood raised in them. And so I guess there's still questions about pesticide buildup for those frames, but I feel like there's probably not the need to swap those out like they are my brood frames. My brood frames are on a pretty solid 5-year rotation due to age.
Mine I do. It's about 10% of my frames per year are just moved out. I'll look at them. If it's dark and crunchy, there's almost... So the other thing we haven't talked about is that when they have those cocoons in there, it displaces a lot of the wax.
Yep.
So melting down those frames to get wax out of them,
there's not a lot there.
There's just nothing there. And so you'll push out... I usually punch out the foundation because I use plastic foundation. Steve uses wire foundation, but... I'll punch out that foundation and put new foundation in and wax it down, give it a coating of wax, and be done with it. Put them back in the hives. So, and that'll happen in the spring. Don't do that in the fall. That would be a silly thing to do in the fall. They're not drawing comb right now.
Or, it's a good late winter task when you've done some inspections in February, 60-degree February day, and you notice some dead outs.
Yeah. That's
a great time to go ahead and clean that dead out and then make some decisions on what frames you want to cull if you need to.
Yeah. Next one in here is frame arrangement. They're worried that, so they organized their frames and grouped some together that were full, and they pushed some empties to the side, and then moved them partially drawn frames closer to the cluster.
Well, hold on. You got to start with the fact that they're working a horizontal, and that sort of changes
what you should be doing in your hive.
Because neither of us are you running a horizontal this year?
I'm not. I'm not. There's people that love them. For the cost.
I've worked them a couple times. I had a student that had some, and I haven't had one personally. So as I understand it, it should be horizontal. Should basically be what a Langstroth is laid down, which means the brood and pollen is going to be closest to your entrance.
Yep.
And then the honey at the edges.
Yep.
Whatever that means. It could be the farthest away from the entrance. It could be tops and bottoms, right? Typically the farther the way you get from the entrance and around the edges is where you'll get the honey. We see this in cutouts.
Yeah, all the time.
Where the farthest locations away from the entrance is the honey. And so if you're going to rearrange frames, grouping your honey frames together is something I would do. Grouping your honey frames away from your brood frames is okay. Keeping your pollen frames next to your brood is good. Putting all of your brood together is good. And then there's a question about open space and partially drawn frames. And what do you do with those? And I think my answer to that is it depends on what season you're in. If you're in spring and it's the build-up period and you're concerned about them running out of space, giving them half-built frames in the middle of the colony can be a good way to ensure that they continue to have space to build.
Yes, they don't feel too crowded. It's usually called checkerboarding.
Yeah. You got to be careful early in the spring that you don't give them too much room and break up a brood cluster. But that's probably the late March and early April periods of time if you're in the Midwest. Yeah. But late moving into fall, they're not gonna that's just dead space, And so you can either consider that to be area removed. So in a horizontal hive, you usually have what they call a follower board, which is sort of a way to separate the portions of the hive they're actively working versus the portions they're not actively working. Yeah. And so moving those partially drawn frames to the other side of your follower board to condense down the amount of space in the hive so they have less space in the winter is advisable. So that's sort of my answer to rearranging frames in a hive.
Yeah, I agree. And then the only thing that I could add on to that is that if you do have a Langstroth, right, a vertical hive, as we go into winter, you're going to put the supplies, any supplies that they have, you want it to be above the cluster. So I run like 2 deeps, right? And so you really want that top deep to be packed with honey, and you want them mostly into that bottom portion of that hive right now. Just so they have access to supplies. And if you add anything extra, so if you're feeding them, you're going to add a feeding shim, that's going to be above the hive. But I'm sure that we'll cover that in a future episode. Hive entrances. He's got a horizontal hive, and they're not sure which entrances should be left opened or closed. So they closed all the right side entrances, moving the empty frames to that side, and they left the left side entrances open. And they're wondering if that's a good idea with winter coming. I think we kind of covered that in the last one.
Yeah, because in horizontals, you'll typically have a left and right side. You typically don't have an up and a top and bottom. It's usually just right and left. Sometimes maybe if it's a really long horizontal, you'll have a middle one. Yeah. But yeah, reducing down to one entrance, wherever that is, top, middle, side, left, right, middle. Organizing, as we previously just said, if you got a vertical Langstroth, reducing your entrances, mouse guards.
Mouse guards should be on right now. Right now, the mice are moving in to find places to stay warm.
And then if you have the option to run a telescoping cover without an upper entrance, you might consider putting that on to avoid chimney effects throughout the winter. Yeah. So to retain the heat up top. So
yep. Then the other one, he's talking about feeding. They have 2 sugar feeders. I'm not sure what a sugar feeder is, but let's just say that it's a feeder, a sugar water feeder. Since the hive is still young, only about 3 frames are fully drawn with bees, comb, and honey. Should I be running both feeders at once? This is the question that bothered me the most out of all the questions.
So at this point in the year, a 3-frame nuke, 3-frame colony is not going to be in a position to survive winter. So that is an ideal candidate to do a newspaper combine with, probably. Or if you're in southern portion of the country where you have you don't have a lot of winter, if you're a Florida, you're a Texas, you're Gulf Coast, you really don't have that harsh of a winter. Certainly reducing them down to 5 frames and keeping them on a feeder of some sort would be my option at this point. Really managing their space. Palmer loved to build 4 nukes, Palmer nukes, in August, and we're just a couple weeks outside of August, so might be a candidate to find another small hive, 10-frame hive that's sort of never really grew into a big hive, and steal some resources from a bigger hive, and sort of set up a 4/4 Palmer nuke situation where you.
Let's say it's the worst case scenario, and I don't have any other equipment. And I have this 3-framed hive. Have you ever seen a 3-framed colony make it through winter?
I had a 5-frame nuke in a wooden plywood nuke. Yep. Not a pro nuke, but a wooden nuke that I built that I put up in a tree as a swarm capture. Yep. And I didn't pay any attention. And apparently at some point in the year, bees moved into it, and I didn't notice until the next spring when the wife mentioned that there was a lot of bees coming and going from that swarm trap you put up last year. Yeah. And I went up there to investigate, and it was full of bees. like full of honey and full of bees, like it had overwintered.
Yeah.
So I know for a fact that they'll overwinter. You can get a 5-frame nuke to overwinter.
Yeah.
And so, 3 frames in a box and a 5-frame nuke and feed. If you don't have a lot of winter, sure,
so
maybe.
I've not quite. I've got 3-frame colonies in queen castles to make it through till February, and then we get the varying temperatures.
Yeah,
and they just eat all the resources and they die. So I've never. Now I know that there's a guy, Randy Washburn. He's in Southern Illinois. He has pictures of his 3-frame nukes that he overwinters, like tons of them. So maybe
like
it's because
three threes and a 10-frame,
like a 3-framed nuke sitting next to a 3-frame nuke. Like he has a wall of them, and that's what he sells his nukes in the spring, as 3-framed overwintered nukes. And I know Megan Milbrath, who's from Michigan, and she has also overwintered 3-frame nukes there. But basically, you have to have a ton of supplies for them that's easily accessible, and you kind of have to protect them from the elements. But I've never really been very good at overwintering anything smaller than like a 5/5. 5/5s, I've been fine. 4/4s, like I've had those overwinter too.
Yeah, the Palmer nukes, because they share the same. Right, they share a common wall. I think that helps to share heat. Even if you insulate for our Midwest winters.
Yeah, I just put a northern wind block in, but yeah.
I think if you're southern regions where you don't get as harsh a winter, you might have better luck than we've had up here. So
yeah, I think the further as long as you get still like their key ideal temperature is like 40 degrees, between 40 and 50. I have to go look again. But their metabolic perfect is in the 40 and 50 degree range.
I think our last segment is droning on, where we talk about what we're going to be doing in the next 2 weeks between this episode and next. I think I got a couple more treatments to put on and doing cleanup. What are you doing with your honey supers? I meant to ask this earlier. I still got my honey supers kind of like as a random location spread around my yard that they were put out to rob out one after I got done extracting, and I see some of them have been wax mothed.
Oh, that's painful.
I mean, yeah, but I don't have a good way of storing them wax moth free.
So
I've never gone wax moth balls.
Yeah, so I put them in I have a storage side of my honey house.
Yeah.
And I stack all of my drawn frames and comb in the honey in that side, and I can be pretty wax moth free if I am real careful about sealing the top and bottom of them. But I also this year I will probably put the special wax moth balls into them, just to keep the wax moths out, because they're all nicely drawn.
They are.
And it mostly just makes me angry when the wax moths get in there and totally...
Basically, you're starting over.
You're starting over, right? And some of them are okay to start over, but some of those it's a waste of resources.
There's a lot of resources that go into building that every spring.
Yeah. So largely, and I've seen other people set up, and they don't do anything.
Yeah.
They do nothing special. They just stack all the boxes up, and yep, they're there, and there's no wax moths, and they say we've never had a problem. As long as they're dry, we don't have a problem. And I just have not found that to be the issue. If they're dry and have no honey in them, I still get wax moths.
Yeah.
So and that's usually in my deeps. So my deeps, if I lose some deep frames to wax moths over winter because I didn't store them well, that is less heartbreaking to me than if I lose
my honey supers. So that's around the yard, just doing cleanups, doing some checks. Last check I had was probably 2 weeks ago, and I think it was the first time I made the comment. I think this was after we podcasted that This is the first time I'd done a late year check when I was putting Formic Pro on, where I had 100% queen right colonies checks on colonies, where I didn't see anything that was obviously problematic in terms of disease or queenless. So that's the first time in quite a few years that
That's good.
Everything that I touched looked good. Now they had varying levels of resources.
Yeah.
Some were certainly better prepared at that point than others, but in terms of queens that were queen right and laying and didn't appear to have any problems, I was 100% on everything I got into, and I got into like 11 hives.
Yeah. Well, knock on wood.
Knock on wood. Yep.
I've also had a pretty good queen year with the queen right hives. I've had a few that I have had to reintroduce. Like basically, I didn't even introduce a queen. I just put the whole colony in because it was pretty late.
Yeah.
So I've had a couple of those, but not nearly as many as I've had in past years. The other thing that I've been doing is I'm going to do more open feeding, and I'll probably also feed specific hives. I've got some customers whose hives went in later than I would like to have them agreed to have put them in, and so I will have to feed those.
You doing frame feeders?
Yeah, I only do frame feeders on the customer hives, and for the customers that are brave enough or really want to get into their bees, I have one of them, one of those customers out of like 10. Though for those, I tell them that they can go ahead and put and open the lid and where the frame feeder is going to be and what to expect to see. As far as follow-up, I did go out to the customer that still refuses to pay me and is not going to pay me because they're selling the property. I did go out there and I grabbed honey off of them. I pulled basically a 5-gallon bucket of honey off of those hives.
50 pounds, yeah.
Yeah, and I made sure that they're all set up for winter, and I put oxalic acid pads in there.
Yep.
And said, okay, I'm done. So I had some people write me and text me and say, hey, this is what I would do. So local folks, I appreciate the feedback. But yeah, that's what I did. And then the other thing is I'm going to plug a book that I read that our library carries that was introduced to me that explains beekeeping in a story mode, kind of almost a comic booky way. It's got some really good, all the data in it is really good. I think there was like one small thing that I was like, I understand what they're saying, but that's kind of a questionable way to say it. That one's called Way of the Hive. So if you're out there and either you want to know more about beekeeping or you have kiddos that want to know more, Way of the Hive, really good. It's a nice little story. It doesn't take long to read, maybe 15 minutes. I gave it to my high schooler who helped me out this year as far as, hey, books to read. Won't take long. So anyway, I'll be looking for more books like that. I've got another book that I'm reading called Heavy Hives or Fat Bees, Heavy Hives. I don't know. Somebody wrote it. It was reviewed before. I have it. So I'll be doing some reading too.
And how long you can be carrying on your help?
I'm going to be right now. I'm in the midst of melting, processing wax, making lip balms, and making candles. So I'll carry them on to teach them, hey, this is how we do these things. And then I'll probably cut them loose until spring. So not much longer, but when I was gone, I needed somebody to look over the hives, feed where necessary, and they did some organizing and some cleaning. So all of those things were good.
I think that about wraps it up this week. We appreciate everybody listening once again. If you have any questions, you can drop us a note in the show notes or find us on the Discord. There's Patreon that's floating around. If you want to support us, that's always an option. I don't know that we have any supporters to call out yet.
We don't. If you guys have ideas for things that you'd like to see on Patreon, let us know. I do have a request out there from some folks that would like to know how I run my beekeeping business. And I had another request. I'll have to talk to I'll take it offline with Steve about the local apiary. So we'll talk about the local apiary coming up too, as far as the Heart of Illinois Beekeeping Apiary and how that works.
And between now and the end of the year, we hope to have some guests on.
Yep. As they get out of their hives.
Yep. As the beekeeping season starts to wrap up and people start to get more time. So I think that's about it. Thanks again for listening.